Gender and Family Didi, Executive Director Amin Ibrahim of the National Narcotic Control Board, members of Journey, my dear friend Rado, Dharubaaruge Chief of Procurement and Property Management, Mohammed Hasmat Abdallah, colleagues from TBN this evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This really is an extraordinary evening, and I'm going to indulge you a little bit with a little bit of drama. And I promise you this is with sincerity. I ask one thing before this drama begins. Trust me. Close your eyes. Just close your eyes for a second. See, I'm doing something that I don't want you to see. I'm going to ask you just for a moment, if you will, closing your eyes, try to imagine for the face of addiction in this country. Imagine, if you will, maybe somebody within the family, maybe somebody that you've met, maybe an old school colleague, maybe a colleague in the workplace. But for me, this is a personal story. For me, the face of addiction in this country is a young 23-year-old woman that I met in Adu close to 2 years ago. She was 3 months pregnant at the time, and she was at the rehabilitation center. I think it's now called the Regional Drug Rehabilitation Center in Adu. She was very hopeful of making a complete recovery from her rehabilitation, having her baby, and continuing her life free from the nightmare of addiction. Beautiful woman, lots of promise. She told me about the early years of her life. Divorced parents, very unsettled adolescents. Shattered, in fact, when at the age of 13 years she was raped. Tragically left school, her academic performance plummeted. Very quickly she was on the fringes of society. She was hanging out with boys who were already using drugs. Very soon they were sharing their drugs with her. No time at all, she became very heavily addicted. It was heroin, brown sugar. And very shortly, she was also involved in commercial sex work in order to generate funds to buy the drugs of her friends. It's a very sad story, but this is a true story. Despite being pregnant, her pregnancy didn't allow much time to break free from the horrors of prostitution. Very quickly she became very ill, very seriously ill. She was rushed to the regional hospital, and from the regional hospital she was referred after some care and intensive treatment to the Regional Rehabilitation Center. And at the Regional Rehabilitation Center, then in its infancy, I believe it was only open for 1 month, she tried to continue her treatment, her rehabilitation treatment. But despite the best efforts of her counselors, at that time security and counselors were hard to find, very thinly stretched in this country. She found it hard to cope. And within weeks, she checked out. She returned to the shadows. Even to this day, she remains in the shadows. I heard a story very recently that in fact she had her baby. She even married the father of the baby, and for a while they lived with the full hope of recovery. But very sadly, due to the thinly stretched availability of counselors and the weak aftercare support for recovering addicts, her husband relapsed and she relapsed. And right now she's living apart from her family and her child. Ladies and gentlemen, for me, this is the face of addiction that haunts me. This is the reason why UNICEF decided to commit and support the recovering community, particularly to reach out to young, vulnerable men and women in particular that are suffering from this awful nightmare. But tonight, particularly tonight from here on, we've decided to think again and wake up from this nightmare. We're here today because we know that we just cannot continue to turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to this problem. As my colleagues who spoke before me have said, Mr. President, you too. It's ruining the lives of so many, and it threatens to erode against the amazing achievements that have been made for children in this country over the last 30 years. We're here to wake up together with each and every Maldivian person to get involved, to understand, to listen, to reach out, and to take personal action. We need to get informed, stay smart, inform ourselves about the dangers of drugs, or what those drugs are actually doing to young minds and young bodies. We need to get a clear picture of the very serious nature of this problem, put it into a realistic, national, regional, and global context. Maldives is not alone with this problem, this we know. UNICEF has gathered a lot of experience around the world working with partners on this problem too. We need to listen to the voices of children, spend quality time with our kids, communicate with them, try to understand their frustrations, the peer pressures they face, the fast pace of change in their world, much of it which doesn't make sense. Let's talk openly about drugs. Let's talk about drugs because talking about drugs doesn't lead to the taking of drugs. If kids find out about drugs from the wrong kind of source, it does. Parents, talk to your children before the dealer does. We need to understand that drug addiction can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, economic status, the family that they belong to. We need to act at every level to raise prevention awareness, and particularly to support those who need recovery. Many people don't realize that addiction is really a disease, a chronic, progressive condition that requires professional treatment, help, and support.